Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online. And this afternoon, I have the lovely Dr. Andrea Pennington with us. Hello. She is just an incredible woman. I mean, I could never hope to memorize everything that she's done. But we're talking integrative physician, acupuncturist, meditation teacher, best-selling author of many books, TEDx speaker, has been a sought-after media personality all over the place and still is. So she has featured on Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Oz, ITV's, sorry, it was This Morning, CNN, and all sorts of other things. So tons of accolades, medical doctor as well, and helps people now with life purpose, self-love, realization, and just attracts just a beautiful audience and beautiful clientele to come and work with her with all those fabulous skills. So thank you so much for coming to join me on Inspired Online today. Just such a joy to see you again, actually.
Thank you, Shay. I know it's been too long since we've connected, so thank you for having me.
Absolutely, such a pleasure. And I'm going to start with the question that we ask all our speakers, which is, if you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
Well, I would say you are a gift to the world. You have a unique purpose and a unique place in this big tapestry of our lives. And I would suggest that you share your presence with passion. What I've noticed early on in my career as a medical doctor, I noticed that there were certain patients, for example, that wouldn't get better. Even though I had this big multidisciplinary wellness center with acupuncture and massage, we had a holistic spa, we had psychiatry, regular medicine, like cognitive behavioral therapy, like everything you need to like thrive in life. And working with people who had addiction or eating disorders or other chronic illnesses, most people would like totally get better because we fixed everything, you know, like we fixed their brain, fixed their nutrition, fixed their mindset. But there was a small subset of our population that didn't get better. They'd either switch addictions or they'd sabotage. And what I discovered as I kind of dug deeper was if they didn't have a fundamental belief that they were worth enjoying happiness and vitality, if they didn't love themselves, then they wouldn't get better. Okay. And so it's taken several years, but I've started to bring more of a holistic and integrative approach to everything that I do, so that people realize once you start to reconnect with who you really are on the deepest level, you will realize that you are a gift. You have a unique place and a unique role to fulfill in this life. And until you find it, don't give up. Like, keep going for that.
I love that, you know, that concept of you are a gift. I mean, how many people need to hear that today or remind themselves of that? And certainly there are people out there that are not really feeling in that place right now. So you alluded to the way to counter that is to connect with yourself. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you would do that if, you know, you're not feeling like you're the gift that you should be?
Yeah, well, I've lived that. I've experienced that. And I think that's why I focus on it now. So when I say that I was seeing in my patients this lack of self-love, they never use those words particularly, but that's what I was picking up on. And it wasn't instantaneous, but then I realized I was the same way. Now, I wasn't using drugs or had an eating disorder, but I had this perfectionism going on. And I was able to see that they had their way of compensating with whatever psychic pain they were dealing with, and I had my way. And I would say that the first thing that we started to do was to unravel, how did you get to where you are today? And we know that in the first several years of our life, up to age 7, our brain, literally, if we hooked up your brain as a child, we'd see that you were in the brainwave pattern of a hypnotic trance. Wow. So we literally are programmed from birth up until age 7-ish. And so you've been programmed to think about yourself in a particular way. And to even look at the world, like, right? We're seeing that people's beliefs about other genders and other people of other skin color and socioeconomic status, that didn't just arrive overnight. That was something that was built over time. And so the first step is to really ask yourself this question: who am I really? And who have I been programmed to be? Because as you start to go back into your life and you look at where did all these programs and beliefs come from, then you can ask the next question, which is, do I believe that anymore? Is it true? Because so many people who've experienced trauma, they've taken on beliefs like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, nice girls don't do that, it's safer to be quiet and not speak up, take care of everyone else's needs and put your own needs last. Like, we never have those specific words as a child, but those beliefs get sunk into the subconscious mind. And so if we go back and we start to look, okay, why did I take on the belief that I'm not smart enough? And maybe it was you got teased at school, or maybe it was your parent who was trying to push you to be smarter, to get all A's or whatever. When we go back and we look at those events where we took on those beliefs deep into the subconscious mind, you may have created a coping mechanism. Like, okay, I'm going to study really good and I'm going to always have the answers and I'm going to push myself. This was my story, which pushed me into this perfectionism and this achievement focus. And then even when I got to the height of my career, I still felt like I wasn't smart enough. And I had that imposter syndrome, like always worried that someone's going to find out that I don't know enough, that I'm not smart enough, that I'm not good enough. But once I was able to go back and look at where did that actually come from, then you can ask yourself, okay, fine, you may have had to be really smart and try to get all A's so that your dad wouldn't spank you or so that you wouldn't get teased anymore. That may have been good for your survival then, but is that where you want to be now? And is that who you want to be going forward? You may not have had a choice then. If you grew up in a family where there was abuse or alcoholism or a parent died or whatever, you may not have had a choice at that very tender age. You compensated the best way that you knew how at that developmental level. But where you are today, this is where we get to take our power back, heal those old wounds, and then decide moving forward. So that's what I would say. If you're not feeling like you're a gift to the world, then you need to go back and find out why. When was the first time you felt like you weren't important, that you didn't matter, and heal that?
Oh, that's really beautiful. And I mean, I'm sure, age 0 to 7, as best the intentions that our parents have, would probably have those little pieces that have stayed, with us at those ages. So say we found that belief, and we think, yeah, but it is true. So, using the I'm not smart enough, it could be, this isn't your story, but it could be someone's story that, well, I didn't get all A's. I failed university. I'm working some job that really doesn't fulfill me right now. That's the evidence that my life is showing. Like, how do I, I know I need to not have that belief, but life's showing me evidence that makes that really hard. So what can I do now?
Well, then I would say use what you've got. So what we know is that the brain is like plastic. We have this thing called neuroplasticity, which means you can learn. So even if you may not feel like you have the smarts in some particular area of your life, as soon as you decide that you want to work on it, you can. And so if your life is showing you evidence that you're not smart enough, then choose an area of focus that you can literally say that it's going to bring you a sense of peace. I'm not saying trying to be a smarty pants to please anyone else, to get that recognition or whatever, but really tune in and think about, what would bring me that sense of joy and fulfillment in my life, and then choose to develop excellence in that area. You may, at this age, maybe you're not going to be the best ballroom dancer or the most competitive athlete, but you can decide for yourself to get to a level of excellence that brings you a sense of fulfillment, because we can all learn. I'm still learning. I mean, there are things that I challenge myself on a weekly basis to kind of get better and to grow. And that's what we have. We have this ability as human beings to continue to grow. So don't think that just because you didn't learn it then that you can't, or that you've been fixed in one particular state, because you're not.
No, that's wonderful. And I want to take this conversation slightly to somewhere else now. So you might have a belief that other people don't think is possible. So, you know, what you said about, well, maybe you're not going to be a ballroom dancing world champion at this age. What if I think, do you know what? I don't think a lot of people know my age, so I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm not 5. And I haven't been ballroom dancing since I was 5, but I did learn it quite a long time ago. And if I have that ambition now, right, I'm going to be world champion, is that unrealistic? Is there such thing as having to make our goals realistic, or can you go for like unrealistic dreams?
I think it depends on the dream. You know, I will give you one case example. So my mother comes from British Guyana, and she witnessed her own mother die a very painful death from type 2 diabetes complications. And she told her brothers, who became sort of the caretakers of the estate back in Guyana, she told them that she wanted to go to England, where you are,
Yes.
to become a nurse. And they all said, okay, my mom was born in the 30s. She's 80 something now, right? They all said to her, that's not realistic. No, you're not going to go to England and become a nurse. And when she persisted and said, no, I want to do this, then they said, well, that would be improper because you'd have to see naked people. And even then, she's being told, no, not realistic. She did it. She got herself to England. She became a nurse. Well, she ended up marrying an American who was over there in the military, and then immigrated to the United States. And when she got to the United States, she started working in a hospital in Sacramento, California. And she was shocked that these American doctors would speak down to the nurses. It was like, that's not what we experienced, you know, back in England. It was like, so she then, as an immigrant to the United States with a funny accent, brown skin, she had 3 children. I was just a baby. She decided, I am going to go to medical school. And she was at that age, pushing 40. And once again, people said, that's not realistic. And most people would say that today. What, you've got 3 kids, you're an immigrant, you're at that age, you think you're going to go to medical school? She did it.
It's amazing.
And she went on to have this amazing career as a physician. So I think, yes, there are things, am I ever going to be, you know, like Serena Williams? Not bloody likely. I mean, unless I mean, even if we were to say, like, I hired the best coach and I worked 10 hours a day from this point forward, I'm 49. I'm almost 50. It's not likely.
You don't look it at all. My goodness me.
Well, but still,
yeah,
that's probably not realistic. Can I be an incredible tennis player if I decided to focus and really practice and get there? Yes. So I think I say all of this to say that, yeah, there are going to be some goals that you might want to achieve that aren't realistic, but that shouldn't stop you from pursuing a level of excellence. And if you really feel that determined, then I would equip yourself with everything you need. So yeah, it may require a lot of time and practice and a coach or a mentor who's going to help you get there. If that's your conviction, I would say do it. Because the other thing that I will share about my mother that really touched me is she defied a lot of odds, you know, by going to England and becoming a nurse, to marrying an American and moving to the US, to becoming a physician. And she tells me all the time, or she used to say, I've lived my life according to my terms and I have no regrets. So a few years ago, she was with me. I was with her in Las Vegas, where she lives now. And I shared with her my TED Talk, the first TED Talk that I did. And that was a very sensitive issue for me, because I came out with my story about how I dealt with depression and anxiety and how I had this out-of-body near-death experience. And I shared it with my mom, who at this point now has Alzheimer's. And when I shared that TED Talk with her, she still had like 20 to 30 minutes of memory. And as you know, TED Talk's 18 minutes. So I
Yeah.
shared this with her. And at the end of it, she kind of nodded her head as I closed my laptop. And she said, I can tell you're doing the master's work. In her terminology, God is the master. And she said, keep going. And she said, you know what? At this stage, I live my life in the way that I want to. And if I should cock up my toes and meet my master, I believe that he will say, job well done.
Yeah.
And it just moved me, because there she was, this woman who had been so feisty and fierce, and now she's dealing with Alzheimer's and is dependent on other people. But to hear her say that she feels like she has fulfilled the master's work and is ready to go on without regrets, I know that that is the one thing that has fueled me, and even with raising my now teenage daughter. And so we have enormous potential. We have incredible potential, and most of us don't live up to it because we're not challenged. Either we don't challenge ourselves. Like, she didn't have coaches, kind of prodding her on. It was her own internal drive after seeing her mother die that pushed her. So I would say, you have it in you. You may have to go digging for it. And if you've got that gumption, then go after it.
I love that. Wow, that is actually so moving, and how amazing to be brought up with, a mum that had those beliefs and that model. So that's really, really cool. Now, you talked about your TED Talk and, how you spoke about overcoming depression, and what were the first steps that you took to that? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people in that place right now, particularly after all this isolation that we've had. Some people have started to see a little bit of freedom for the first time in, at least 2 months, if not more. What can we do?
Well, the first thing I would say is, if you're dealing with depression or low moods or anxiety, is to talk about it. That's a mistake that I made, because I was a doctor and I was working in television. I was under that belief that I needed to be perfect and I wouldn't show my weakness. And that isolation, it further fuels the low moods that come with depression. And it wasn't until I actually opened up and shared with someone that I started to get better, even beyond like therapy and antidepressants and all of that, because we end up driving so much energy inward when we're keeping that secret. So you've got to reach out and talk to someone. If there's no one in your life that you feel comfortable with, then reaching out to any of the mental health hotlines. That's really the first step. For me, it was sort of a very circuitous journey. I write about that in my book. I didn't know that I could share it with anyone without losing credibility.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got to that ultimate rock bottom, where I literally wanted my life to be over, that I was able to call out to the divine for help. And ultimately, that's what led me on this spiritual adventure that I'm on now.
Amazing. So, well, what is it that, is so healing in sharing? Why is it as healing as it is?
I think it comes back to those beliefs. Like, we feel oftentimes when we're dealing with a health situation or a mental health challenge, we feel like we're separate from others and that we're not good in some way. Depending on what your background is, a lot of us carry shame. And because of that, then we end up hiding or staying silent. And the moment that you're able to share with someone, and for most of us, we're afraid that we're going to either be judged or ridiculed or rejected. And it's usually the opposite that happens. As soon as you share and someone has that nod of recognition, like, whoa, I know what you're going through, or I feel for you, it's healing, because we're no longer alone. And then we can start letting go of all that shame or that guilt or that fear. And the energy that it takes to hide all of that can now be used toward our healing. So it's healing in being seen and recognized and understood and empathized with, that literally impacts our brain and can make us move forward on that healing journey. And we let go of the energy that we used to deny that pain. And that can be shifted into vitality.
Absolutely. Well, let's flip that. And what if you're a person that would like to support these kind of people? Because possibly we all have people in our lives that might be in that place. So even if you're not in that place yourself, how can you do that? And how can you do that in a way that also preserves your own boundaries? Because I mean, certainly in my work, and I know in yours, you don't want to take on those emotions that people are telling you about. But you do want to love and help them. So
yeah. Well, I learned that one the hard way, because I'm also an empath. I feel the energy of other people. I feel their sadness and their pain. But barring that you're an empath, and if you are, then learning how to create a shield or boundaries around yourself. The number one thing I would say is if there is someone that you think is struggling, reach out and ask them. Like, you don't even need to have anything fancy. You don't need to be a mental health counselor. Just say, how are you doing? And be willing to just shut up and listen. And if they say, fine, don't take that as an answer. Fine is not you can't be fine. There is no true definition of fine. Yeah. So you ask, well, how are you feeling? And then silence, so that you can let them feed back to you. And then just keep asking and be persistent and present. Because that's the thing that for most of us, when we are hiding our pain, we don't want to initiate that conversation. But if it's ever, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Shay, but maybe you've been like holding in tears. And if you've ever had this happen where you turn the corner and someone sees you and they're like, oh, are you okay? And then all of a sudden,
I kind of want to hide.
then you're just like crying, like you can't hold it back anymore because someone sees you. It's sort of what happens for us. When someone actually sees us, we can let down our guard and we can finally admit to what we've been dealing with. And so if there's someone that you're worried about, reach out to them, pick up the phone or send them a voice message, not just a text, because it's very easy for us to dismiss someone via text. But if you send a voice message or pick up the phone and actually call someone, more likely than not, it will be a welcome invitation to have a conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. We must not leave people on their own. But I'm going to take this to even further. I remember a situation. I was around 18 and I got one of those emails that probably we're all frightened to get. And somebody that I knew not very well said to me, this is the last time you'll ever hear from me because I'm going to kill myself. And anyway, 18-year-old me didn't know about, maybe you should get a coach or something like that. So I picked up the phone and I said, talk to me and, tell me anything. I'm not going to judge you and, please. And then my 18-year-old self, while this person was on the phone, I'm going to try not to swear, but went, I'm in out of my depth here. What have I opened up? So I didn't know how to deal with it. What can you do if you kind of get yourself into that space?
Well, I commend you for doing that at such a tender age, just picking up the phone. Then you ask for help. If you really feel like you're so out of your depth, if that friend on the other end is really in a dark place, then you invite the help of a professional and ask if you can connect them with, a hotline.
Yeah.
Because there are trained professionals everywhere in every country, and they're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's what a good friend would do. Really? You don't just get off the phone and freak out.
I think I tried not to, but anyway, I was many years ago now, and I believe he's still alive. I hope so. Fingers crossed. Let's talk about asking for help then. Some people are very nervous to do that, and we're conditioned, I think, with all these messages about you can have it all, you can do it all, particularly as women, you can be a mum, a successful businesswoman, a great wife, and a wonderful daughter, and whatever other labels that people choose to throw at you. potentially it's not always possible to just be superwoman, you know. um, what makes it easier to ask for help rather than trying to be superwoman all by yourself?
It takes practice. So you just got to do it. And rather than waiting till your back is against the wall or you're in the midst of serious burnout, if you know that that's an issue for you, and it was for me, like I totally believed that I had to do everything myself. I had to know everything, have everything planned, and I wouldn't ask for help until I was so broken down. And then it's even worse because then you feel like a loser. So I would suggest, if that's you, this resonates, then start with something small. Because if you can learn to ask and then see that nobody thought you were a complete loser, oh, you get this feedback. Your ego gets the feedback that it's safe to ask for help. And then do it more regularly. And even if it's paid help, for a while I was feeling like all this shame, like I really need help around the house. I'm a single mom over in a country where I don't have family. And it was just like, why don't you just get help? And I'm like, because didn't you hear me? I don't have family over here. Well, you don't have to ask your family to help. You can hire someone. Like, it seems really simple. But even just hiring someone for one little task or job is an act of asking, even if you're paying for it. But ultimately, the message here is that you've got to give feedback to the ego that thinks that is holding all these beliefs. And again, check your beliefs. Do you believe that it means you're weak or less of a superhuman if you have to ask for help? Ultimately, that's silliness. But, I don't want to point any fingers at anyone, but that's the reality. And, to go back to our conversation about the greatest ballroom dancer, the greatest entrepreneurs, the greatest athletes, they all have coaches. They all have help. It's not like they sit out there doing their sport and say, I'm going to just do this all on my own. So it's human to be connected to other people. And you give so much value to the people who get to help you. So it doesn't take away value from you.
Absolutely not. Well, Superwoman always has friends and support behind her, as do our supermen out there as well.
Exactly. We have allies. So allow them to be the ally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so incredible to spend this time with you. So thank you so much for coming on. Before you go, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
Just huge gratitude to you for what you're doing. We've talked before about meditation, and I would say if anyone is in that position where you're being hard on yourself, or you are recognizing there are aspects of your personality that need some investigation, I'd invite you to join me on a 21-day compassion meditation challenge of flooding yourself or your inner child with compassion. It's one of the most transformational types of meditation that can rewire your brain, create new pathways, but also heal yourself and put you into a better state where you can heal others.
That sounds so beautiful. And how can our beautiful audience access that, or just, get in touch with you and find out a bit more?
Yeah, pop over to my Facebook page. You'll see the links for the Compassion Meditation Challenge, or on my website, AndreaPennington.com.
Thank you. Well, Andrea, it's great to spend time with you. I hope to see you in person again very, very soon, sooner rather than later, shall we say. Yeah. And just sending lots of love your way. Stay safe.
Thank you. And you as well, Shay. Thank you.